How are you amazing in session, but when it comes to your website, you either don't have one or the one you do have ain't doing much for you? You're probably thinking, I'll build it when I have time. I don't even know where to start, or even, do I really need a website right now? And honestly, those are valid questions. But there's something deeper going on here, and that most therapists don't realize. Hey, I'm Crystal Renee, and I'm a therapist and a website strategist, and I help mental health therapists turn their expertise into clear, client attracting websites. So, whether you're sitting there thinking, I don't even have a website yet, or you have one that's kind of out there, not really doing anything, you're in the right place. And if you're trying to figure out your messaging, your website, or how to actually attract clients online, make sure you subscribe, because that's exactly what I talk about here. Now, when I first started my private practice, I knew I needed a website, not because I had some grand strategy, but because it felt like something I was supposed to do. And that's where most therapists are. You're either putting it off because it feels overwhelming, or you're thinking, let me just get something up. And I chose the second option. So I sat down and I said, okay, let me build something that looks professional. So I focused on the colors and the fonts and the layout and my logo, and I spent hours upon hours on that. And when it came to the words, I kept it very general. I provide individual therapy. I help with anxiety and depression. I offer a safe and supportive space. Like, think about it, safe and supportive space. Isn't that a given? It's like going to McDonald's. Who still goes to McDonald's? But anyway, it's like going there and you're like, and they're like, we serve food fast. Like, duh, ain't this a fast food restaurant? Anyway, my point is the language I was using was very broad, very safe. And I really believe this should work. And then nothing. At first, I thought, maybe it's the design. Maybe I need a better template. Maybe I need to change my colors. Maybe I need some new photos. And I did all of that. The photos were bomb, by the way. But the more I sat with it, a light bulb went off. My website didn't sound like me. It wasn't really speaking to anyone in particular, and it didn't reflect how I show up in session. It didn't reflect how I think. It didn't reflect the kind of work I actually wanted to do. It was just there. And if I'm being real, a lot of therapists' websites feel just like that. So I pivoted. I was like, okay, I got credentialed with a bunch of insurance panels. I set up my Psychology Today profile. Side note, we all know Psychology Today ain't hitting like it used to, but that's a story for another video. But yes, my calendar filled up, but not with the right clients. I was seeing a teenager with anxiety at 11, and grief with an older adult at noon, and then couples therapy at 2, and then something completely different the next day. And there was no focus, and I burned out fast. Not because I didn't care, but because I wasn't building a practice that was aligned with the work I actually wanted to do. And that's when it clicked. The problem wasn't whether I had a website or not. The problem was I didn't have a strategy behind it. And this is where a lot of therapists get stuck. You think the question is, do I need a website? But the real question is, do I know how to use a website intentionally? A website isn't just something you check off your list. It's your digital home base for your business. It's the one place where someone can understand what you do, feel your approach, and decide if they want to work with you. Because nowadays, when someone finds you through a referral, a directory, or even Instagram, they go to your website to answer one question: is this the right fit for me? And if you don't have a website, or the one you have doesn't answer that clearly, they leave. So before you even think about building a website or continuing to avoid building one, you need to understand this. Everything starts with your brand strategy. Your brand strategy is the foundation of your website. And when I say brand, I don't mean only your logo or your colors. That's a small part of your brand. I'm talking about clarity around who you actually want to work with, what they're struggling with, how you help them, and what makes your approach different from all the other therapists out there. This is where a lot of therapists get stuck because it feels easier to jump into design, and that part is fun. But if you don't have this clarity, you'll either keep putting off your website or you'll build something that feels disconnected. And this is where client clarity comes in. If you don't know exactly who you're talking to, your message becomes broad, generic, safe. And when your message is for everyone, it doesn't connect with anyone. Next is your website copy. This is built from your brand strategy. So once your brand strategy is clear, your website copy becomes easier because now you're not guessing what to say. You're speaking directly to a specific person. And this is where your therapy skills actually come in handy because in session, think about it. You listen deeply. You reflect emotions. You help people feel understood. And your website should do the exact same thing. So instead of saying, I provide a safe and supportive space, you might say something like, you're used to holding everything all together for everyone else, and you don't even know what you need anymore. Now, that is clarity. So now let's talk about design. Design is the support, not the driver. So after all of that, your brand strategy is clear and your copy is clear. Your design supports that message. And I hope you get that. It reinforces the feeling. It makes your website easy to navigate. But in my humble opinion, it's not the thing doing the heavy lifting. And to be clear, I'm not saying design isn't important. I'm saying it's not the first thing you should focus on. So, whether you're starting from scratch and you don't even have a website yet, or you've built something and you're thinking, I'm not sure if this is really saying much. The goal is not just to have a website because, yes, you could build something fairly quickly, but that doesn't mean it's going to work. What actually changes things is when your website becomes a reflection of your work. When someone lands on your site and thinks, this feels like the therapist is describing me. This therapist understands what I'm going through. I can see myself working with them. That's what you want. And that doesn't necessarily happen because of your design. It happens because you've taken the time to get clear on who you're speaking to, how you help, and how to communicate that in a way that actually connects. That's when your website shifts from something that just exists on Beyonce's internet to something that actually works for your business. Because real talk, you already know how to connect with people. You do it every day, right? You do it every day in session. You just haven't learned how to translate that into your website. So now, if you're sitting there thinking, like, okay, I don't even know what to put on my website, or maybe you've tried writing and it just sounds vague or like everybody else out there on the internet. I created a free guide to help you start thinking about this differently. It's a quick messaging exercise that helps you understand what your ideal client is actually thinking and translate that from therapy speak into language that actually connects, because most therapist websites aren't necessarily wrong, right? They just sound like all the other therapist websites out there. So, no real distinction, there's no real differentiation, just kind of vanilla, right? Saying the same old things like, I help you feel like yourself again, or I use evidence based practices, another video. And that's why people land on your site and think, this might be helpful, I don't really know, instead of, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And that's what you want. And honestly, it's a quick hit, right? You could do it very quickly. You can go through it in about like 10 minutes. So if you want to start there, I'll link it below. And if this helped you think about therapist websites just a little bit differently, then make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to keep breaking this down in a way that actually makes sense specifically for therapists. All right, I'm out, and I'll see you in the next video.